Yo, 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 what is going on, COD Familia? It is your boy BN. Today, I wanted to talk about kingdom invasions. And for those of you who may or may not have heard of this yet, well, this was a screenshot I pulled from Guns' video where he did. Again, we'll have a link to that in the description. And apparently, from what we can see here, it says cross server intrusion, right? Which basically to me is kingdom invasion. And we're going to talk about what does this mean for the game? And I'm also going to show you an example from how Lords Mobile does kingdom raids. It is a little bit different, but it's the closest thing that I was able to remember from a game that I had previously played that had something-ish. So we're going to read you a little bit there. And then I'm going to talk about, well, is this a good? Is it going to be a bad thing for the game? How it might work based on this and how it might be different from Lords Mobile as well. As always, if you enjoy the content, make sure you throw us up. Because it helps out a lot. Thanks. So, starting off, let's break down how do the raids actually work here. So, if in Lords Mobile, as an example, right, it says to raid kingdoms in Lords Mobile, you must first migrate your own kingdom into another, which requires purchasing a migration score using a free novice relocator, right, in this case. And it says things like, okay, if you're a new player, that's how you do it. Establish target selection, right, migrate your guild, launch the raid, right, gather your guild members, especially most powerful players to initiate migration process. And this, when I was reading it, right, because I had heard about, and I had never participated in any kingdom raids in LM, but I had always heard about these things that would happen. And I thought, okay, well, this is interesting. So are you just, temporarily going over there and you're on a timer? So it's like, you just do as much damage as you can. And then whenever the time's up, you're out? Or is it some other kind of temporary, periodic event maybe that's going on and you have to go and do it during an event window? And when I read this, I thought, okay, well, this is interesting because this sounds like it's just basic migration. I had never really looked into it. And then I came across this subreddit of someone asking on Lords Mobile, why does a kingdom suddenly receive too many players? And this person, this is from 2 years ago as well, right? They say, until 2 weeks ago, our kingdom was fairly easy to breathe. We had 2 titans, each in one, probably Krakens or something to that extent, each in one guild trying to fight for base, which I imagine might be the final building or final objective or a objective. All of a sudden, we started to receive new guilds and, of course, players. In less than 1 week, the number of titans just went from 4 to 38. Even one of the 2 original titans was burnt because she didn't expect a 1 billion player to be rallied. Before that, 600 million was considered as safe. Is there any reason? And you got one person who's in here traveling war guilds. I'm going to be honest, man. I did not realize the last time I had ever heard of traveling war guilds or alliances was on a very wide timeline for Infinity Kingdom, where you would have not necessarily guilds, but you would have like merc groups. And every couple months, they would move to a new kingdom to just go and raid and basically, kill anyone that is fat there, has a bunch of resources, get some kills, and then wait to go and move again, right? Like they didn't even care about taking anything over. Now, bear in mind as well, based on my understanding here and how this works, is I just watched a video that was about 6 hours ago from someone who did a stream of kingdom raiding in Lords Mobile. So my understanding is that, I don't know if I say my understanding, but my conclusion and or assumption based on this is that the migration rules in Lords Mobile are a lot more lax or looser than they are in something like CallofDragons, right? Okay, but then you get to someone else's, sometimes strong guilds will follow each other to compete for fresh kills. If one guild joins, best believe they will be followed by others. So this says you get guilds that change kingdoms so they can destroy them and add it to their record. Did not realize that was a thing. But it takes me back to this on, okay, so we're going to have basically home kingdom invasions, right? Because now it could maybe be, and I don't think that this is the case, right? Because it does say cross-server intrusion. So my belief is they're referring to home kingdoms. It's not like if you're in a KVK, members of alliances and kingdoms in a KVK can go raid another KVK. I don't think it's that. I think it's more along the lines of like, okay, this is Kingdom A, or in this case, Kingdom 1, and this would be Kingdom 2, right, in blue. And players are able to go here. Now, like I said, the biggest difference between Lords Mobile and Call of Dragons is that it feels like the Kingdom intrusion comes off as something that is temporary. It doesn't feel to me, at least at face value, and again, we'll see once more details come out, where you have to migrate there and then essentially turn it into your new home, right? Whether that is your new home to rule or your new home just to conduct war in, right? Until you move again. Now, I don't necessarily think Call of Dragons is going to go down the Lords Mobile route because, again, that's really just basic migration that they just call kingdom raiding, right? But now it gets me to, okay, well, if this is a temporary thing, and let's say you can spend something, like maybe as an example, maybe you'll still have to spend migration permits to go there, to do the raid or the intrusion or the invasion, but then you can go back at any point. Or maybe it'll be where you can do the invade, but if you end up getting rallied or you get hit enough times and your city gets bounced, then maybe it bounces back to your original home kingdom. That could be an idea. However, I think the one thing that we have to at least take at face value is that you are going to be able to go from your home kingdom to potentially any other kingdom. Now, when I say any other kingdom, there's obviously a massive asterisk here because then you also have to beg the question, well, are you going to be able to skirt the migration cap limits on power? Because remember, and really it's more of the accept deny system now, right? Because every player has to be accepted and denied into a kingdom. So the only way that you would be able to circumvent that is if either A, your kingdom opted in for kingdom invasions, which means that if you opt in to do it because you want to go invade kingdoms, it also means that you can be invaded, right? So maybe there's an opt-in thing, or there's an event window, right? So maybe there's a 2 or 3 day event window where it's like the purge, right? That's what it is. That's basically what it is. Now that I'm really thinking about it, it's the freaking purge. So you're going to have like a purge event window, and it will just bypass all migration cap restrictions. And you can just go in there. Or maybe it doesn't even apply to that, right? Which is, I guess, the same thing as bypassing or skirting it. And then it'll allow you to go into these kingdoms during this window and fight as much as possible. But can you have unlimited lives? Can you keep going back into the kingdom if you get bounced? Will you not get bounced from the kingdom? And the only way that you will leave the kingdom is if you yourself move your city back? I mean, there's a lot of unknowns here. But I love the purge thing direction I'm going in now. Okay, now let's talk about some of the downsides, some of the worries. Because for me, I think about the negative impact. And I say that because after just thinking this out and talking it out loud, there doesn't really seem, if you look at the way that the game is constructed currently, there is literally zero way that a player can invade another kingdom's kingdom. Like, I can't take, an example, like if Mephisto was still playing, right? You couldn't have Mephisto go from Kingdom 5, right, back when he was in Noir, and go to, like, TFS or Echo's kingdom as an example. Like, there's just no way that can happen now, right? Because they'd have to be accepted into the kingdom. So it's a hard stop /no-go. So what this makes me think is that they are going to come up with a way to skirt and bypass the migration cap limits. Because how else are you going to accomplish this? And that's whether it's an event or it's something else, right? And again, that's whether or not there's an opt-in from those kingdoms or not as well. So these are things you have to think about. Like, there's a lot of unanswered questions here. And again, keep in mind, maybe they did go into more details at this Asia-based event, but we don't know, right? It's just this screenshot. So like I said, we need to wait for more information. However, I can only imagine what some people are thinking. Now, let me talk about what I think some of the downsides of this are. And do I think that there's any pros to this? Well, let's think about this. At the moment, you have a KVK season that is, and let's really put this into perspective here. You have a KVK season that is 40 days long. And then you are in the home kingdom for about a week, like 2 weeks, right? A week and a half, 2 weeks. And we can kind of get a better idea on this as well. So for example, if I look at, let's go here. Let's go here. This would be a lot better. So let's go here, right? So season at the moment started 9/12, right? This is for the G2 pool. Let's go back to when the G2 pool finished, which would have been War of the Last Snows. And I got to look for some of the big guys here. Wait, okay, here we go. So yeah, here's some of the big guys. So here's War of the Last Snows. This is the G2 pool from last season. They finished their season on the 29th of August, right? 31 days. So you're thinking 2 days, right? That gets you into September. Okay. The G2 pool started on the 12th. So again, that's 2 weeks, right? So you got a 2-week layover from your 40-day season that has already been shortened twice. Now, you're going to add in home kingdom invasions in between this 40-day KVK season. Now, maybe it's not in between. Maybe it's in conjunction with. Maybe you can invade home kingdoms that are only in your KVK group. So you can fight in the KVK or you can go invade the home kingdom. Maybe there's something there, right? Maybe that's a thing. Otherwise, if you go down the path of, well, maybe they won't do home kingdom invasions during a KVK season, and it'll only be applied to kingdoms that are not in KVK, right? Meaning they have to be in the pre-war phase in between. Well, usually during that time, you still have people that are healing. This isn't to say that the majority of players in kingdoms are healing, but you usually are going to have some people that will be healing on average. And so in a number of cases, right, obviously this is applying more to the bigger players, of course, by the time the next KVK starts is enough time for them up to that final day of the new season starting, if they're not already, to be fully healed and ready to go, and then doing as much, gathering and, account rebuilding, if you will, and re-prepping for the new season. Are you going to fit the home kingdom invasion in between the KVKs while people are still healing and trying to recover? Again, I wouldn't get that one. Like that to me wouldn't really make sense. Okay. And then the other part of this is, well, if you're going to be able to invade home kingdoms, are all players up for grabs? Because if all players are up for grabs that are on the home kingdom map, and also if this is being done in between KVKs, how are people going to feel about getting their home kingdom invaded? Again, basically being, I have to assume, right, if you're going to be the ones invading, you're probably going to do some damage. So again, losing troops, if you can rally or not on an invasion, utilizing resources before the next KVK starts. I mean, worst case scenario, like if we're talking ultimate worst case here, like what is the absolute worst thing that could come from this? Well, I go to you basically obliterating a kingdom and making them drain so many of their resources to a point where your kingdom is so much farther ahead by the time the next KVK season starts, giving you a big advantage. Like, to me, and or making it so maybe that team doesn't register. What happens if that kingdom doesn't register? What happens if the home kingdom invasions do happen in between KVKs and maybe there's so much damage that's done before registration hits, some kingdoms are now opting to get out of the pool that they're in and going to an easier pool. It's just, again, the theory crafting, we can go either way with it. It's just, like I said, there's a lot of unknowns right now. And of course, that's the biggest takeaway. However, I'll just say this, at face value, this to me doesn't feel like it's a game advancer or a game W change. It feels like it's a game killer / game L change to me. Again, but maybe there's a creative way. Again, I'm okay giving them the benefit. I'm okay with maybe not giving them the benefit of the doubt, but, waiting to at least see what the plan is here. Because I just don't know how you really make this. I mean, like, maybe if you do like a ghost, like a second ghost account of yourself, so you're getting invaded, but it's like your account is like, for example, when the invasion's happening, maybe you can't go below a certain amount of resources, lose a certain amount of troops. Maybe a second city is created, so it's like a second layer of the kingdom that you're really fighting it out on. So you're not really losing anything on your real account. But I don't see how that would probably happen. It's just, and again, if you've come from a game that has done something like this, I would love to hear from you on what was the experience there, what was the game called, because I may actually want to go and look into it. I wish I had a little bit more time today, and so we might do that as a follow-up. But you guys let me know, right? Is it exciting? Are you worried? Do you think it's going to be a good thing, a bad thing? Why or why not? Let me know in the comments below. That's it for me. As always, until next time, we'll catch you later.